So agency partners, let's talk about that. So you've picked your market, you've identified a market that has the need, and you've realized that it has resources for the tenants who are going to be receiving the subsidies, who you're going to be renting to operate your subsidized housing portfolio. But how do you pick an agency to work with or multiple agencies to work with? When we entered the Phoenix and Tucson market back during the pandemic, we had a rather large portfolio that our client was working with that required a lot of development and a lot of rehab. So we had a little bit of time, but in preparation, our team literally went into those markets, found the agencies that are helping people connect with those subsidies. We got to understand each agency's mission, each agency's culture, and that's how we picked our partners. Now, I hate to say it as generic as this, but it really depends on your specific desires, your specific vision for your portfolio, and what population you want to work with. We've had clients who specifically wanted to try to house families, not just from an emotional standpoint, but also from a logistical and logical standpoint. So if the configuration of the portfolio of real estate that they were about to operate in that market was going to be conducive to families, meaning they had larger units, maybe there was a portfolio of single family homes, fourplexes, duplexes, or larger room count apartments, then it would make most sense to seek out those agencies, either government or nonprofit, that were specifically working with families, larger households that needed more rooms. Conversely, if you were going to operate a portfolio of studio apartments or single room occupancy units, SRO, then obviously it would make more sense to seek out organizations whose population that they were serving were mostly single adults on their own. There you have to understand, what do you want, or what are your main concerns? I like to look at things more from a concern standpoint rather than just wants, because obviously we all want consistent cash flow with no problems, everything's perfect, and that's just not reality. Let's think about when I sit down with a client who is about to invest in or convert a portion of their portfolio to the subsidized housing model, I always ask, well, what are your main concerns? Just tell me what your fears are. And they'll say, well, Stephen, I really don't want, I'm open to working with people who have challenged credit and lower income as long as I'm getting the security of that subsidy. But I really kind of draw the line at people who have any kind of criminal history. There are certainly agencies out there who their sole existence is to help people with housing, but a population who also happen to have high utilization of different government services. One of those could be homeless services or housing services for justice impacted communities. A good example of that, like, what does that mean, Stephen? Okay, there are agencies out there who solely focus on helping people who are experiencing homelessness or lack of housing, also a history with the criminal justice system. It's a population that needs service, just like there are agencies out there that specifically help people who are seeking housing but who have substance abuse or who have a history of severe physical ailments. Or there are agencies out there that serve the LGBTQ community specifically. Every agency has a mission and a purpose. Some do all, and some have very narrow focus. So when you're looking for the agencies you're going to partner with on your portfolio, you really can find agencies that have very specific missions, agencies that have broad missions. But also, it's equally important for us as the consultants when working with our clients and when we sit down with them to understand specifically what are your main fears, because there are agencies who target a demographic that may not be conducive. For instance, and this is just logical, if an organization specifically services people who are receiving housing subsidy, but also are coming out of parole or are coming out of prison on parole, and now they're also in. So then the agencies with social services and services, they got their subsidy. But your piece of real estate that you're going to apply the subsidized housing model to happens to be right across the street from a preschool or a park, where it is highly possible that some of the population served by that particular agency on a background check may come back with certain things that restrict their proximity legally to a park or a school. That's something to consider, because now you're the landlord, and if you're working with an organization that targets a demographic that just cannot be in that physical location geographically, you have to take that into consideration. It's your duty. Now, that's a very extreme example, but it's a true example. You cannot go into this blind. You have to be very strategic. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of time. Our firm has fostered relationships with all the top organizations. Some of them are national organizations, but it's taken 10 years. So we can cut that out for most of our clients by just using the relationships and our knowledge. But if you're going to go it alone, you have to do your homework and you have to be very thorough. What happens when you find an agency that matches your criteria on surface level? How do you know it's going to be good long-term partners? Some of it is time will tell, but a lot of it is just have a sit-down conversation with them and get a feel for them. Ask them tough questions. Hey, organization, if the tenant stops paying their portion of the rent outside of what you're going to be paying or what the subsidy is going to be paying, who do I call? What do I do? And if it seems like they have a system in place and a protocol, fantastic. But if it seems like they're flying by the seat of their pants and just putting things together on the fly, you may take into consideration whether that's a long-term partner you want to work with. Because let's not forget that they're going to be your partner for the term that you have their referred tenant living in your apartment or your property. So just as you vet your lender, your builder, your handyman, your property manager, you vet all of those people who got you to this point, the partner on the government and nonprofit side are absolutely critical, and you have to be absolutely sure that these are people that you're comfortable, not only that they're going to be there when times get tough and when you need help, but that you're going to want to work with them for 12, 24, or months beyond. Our partners, nonprofit and government partners, we've worked with them for years, but it took a long time to get there. So we can help you with that, but those are definitely things you need to take into consideration.